to encourage our hearts so that we see how close we are. Today I won't really get too involved in numbers, but I want to go to characteristics of the past, and that we today can look at characteristics of today and compare the two to see as Yahweh's word is being manifested. It is being manifested in us. Amen? So this will be part 2. Our fathers have inherited falsehoods, lies. Falsehood is a little deeper. It's like it tags something on. You can be a father, but fatherhood, parenthood, motherhood is a reflection of Yahweh's creation, that we become mothers and fathers. So you're not just a father, you're walking in the footsteps of fatherhood. So on the other side, we have received not just lies, inherited lies, but falsehoods. And so as we kind of dig in to look at this, let's go on and first just kind of put on the top side of our thoughts something that we already know I talk about a lot, and I just want to bring to your attention Yahweh's grace and his deliverance that are working before we even got here. So I want to go back to Passover of 1865, which is April 9th. We received emancipation. And although I've talked on this more heavily before, I'm going to kind of just skip through, and I will at another time come back and dig more into emancipation. But for now, I want to bring out what did happen and where we can find the witness. The 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution officially ended the Institute of Slavery, which is ratified, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall be duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. With these words, the single greatest change wrought by the Civil War was officially noted in the Constitution of the United States. And I pulled this from the History Channel website, and there is the identification or the link. Just a little bit to kind of show why I have this, because this is going to look like out in the left field when I bring in my topic. But I need for you to identify these people who this document is recognizing as now free. Excuse me, and the word that frames it. It says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, that's slavery, except as punishment for what? Crime. There is where the wording for slavery is negated. They give you freedom and then take it right back. In other words, what they've done is they set up a system of black codes and frivolous laws that fulfilled that. If a black man didn't bring his check home, black code. If it did not, if his wife complained at all, he can be picked up, put in jail. If he was found to be loitering, or so many other laws that they made for black men only, this law kicks in. And let me show you how so. The 13th Amendment ends slavery, brings in emancipation, except for punishment for crime. Except for punishment for crime, which means you're now into the penal system, which is now a form of slavery. And so in this way, you are now once again enslaved to a system. Notice what it says. Institution of slavery. So now they just recreated what they already had. And so this is very important. I won't come back to this. But notice who these people are, because we're going to go on a hunt. Y'all know I like to do searches, so today you are going to be part of that. All right, so as we move on, let's begin to look at the falsehoods. Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19. O Yahweh, my strength and my stronghold and my refuge. In the days of stress, the Gentiles shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers have inherited only falsehoods, futility, and there is no value in them. Let's note, when did our people come to this land? 1619 AD, Jamestown, Virginia. I have my little note down there. So if we came here in 1619, and I'm just going with formal documentation of the United States or the 13 colonies, they have a lot of information that we have not been privy to, such as names. I've showed you in times past where some of the names that were on the ships were at the end, Yah, the manifesto. It had Yah on the end, which is a very strong clue. Hallelujah. We carried Yahweh's name in our names. And so while they took away those names and gave us names like Richard and Sue and Bethan and so on, we did not connect to who we are. But now I want you to see it. And also, this is the conversation I was telling you about last week that I was having with my wife. I was talking with someone had asked me, called me in one of my classrooms and said, what is the scripture about? And I told them that, well, we're going to say in a time to come that we received lives. We have inherited lives. He said, Rabbi, I need that scripture. I said, let me call you back and make sure that I'm absolutely correct, because I was dealing with another pastor who was in another classroom. And I said, let me call you back. And I made sure that I was right. Jeremiah 16:19. Wait a minute. And I said that to my wife. She said, 16:19? I said, I will never forget that ever again in my life. Because 1619 is the year we landed according to the manifestos of the 13 colonies. Now, is that a coincidence? Yahweh, he leaves hidden manna. We will say. This is what Yahweh is saying. This is a prophecy. And I'm going to move on from here. Our fathers have inherited only falsehood.
Right.
Futilities.
Right.
There is no value in them. So I want to look for this. I want to look for what lies did we inherit? What is the value? We already know is zero. And we're gonna kind of dig. So as we begin, let's begin here, and I think you will be very, very familiar with this one. Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 8. Shema, the word of which Yahweh spoke to you, or hear the word which Yahweh speaks to you. O house of Israel, thus saith Yahweh, do not learn the way of the Gentiles. Can you read that for me, the red? Do not learn the way of the Gentiles. And do not be awed by the signs of heavens, for the Gentiles are awed by, for the prescribed customs of these people are worthless. For one cuts down a tree from the forest, work for the hands of a craftsman with a cutting tool. They adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and a hammer so that it does not topple. They are like a rounded post, and they do not speak. They have to be carried because they do not walk. They do not believe. Excuse me. They do not be afraid. Yes, do not be afraid of them, for they do no evil, nor is it in them to do any good. There is none like you, O Yahweh. You are great, and great is your name in might. We'll look for that as well, his name in might. Who would not fear you, O sovereign of the nations? For this is your due. For among all the wise men of the nations, and in all their reign, there is none like you. They are both brutish and foolish. An instruction of worthlessness is the tree. So this people can be called probably foolish. The name of Yahweh, which is mighty, and he's speaking of the Gentiles. Now I'm going to speak about the Gentiles again, but I want to point out who this particular group of Gentiles, because we have Yahweh speaking to who? O house of Israel, right?
Right.
So we can cancel that out as the confusion as to who's the Gentiles here. Because he's talking to Israel, the house of Israel, and he's saying, do not learn the way of who? The Gentiles. So Yeshua, he cleared that up when he said that if the house of Beelzebub is being basically badly paraphrasing, led by Beelzebub, then the house is divided, right? They shall not stand. So that can apply here. Yahweh is not talking to Israel as Gentiles. Right. He's talking to Israel to stay away from the customs of who? These people. Let's identify these people. Gentiles.
Right.
And I think you already know who that is and what that is, but I shall not say it just yet, because today, Those of you who are listening by internet, this is for you. And I need for you to really hear me today. So as we go through this, we're going to be balancing out who is who, as well as identifying who is who. So let's go to a little more of this extension of these people. And I was only able to get, without having to create a couple of more slides, I just chose one as my example. I hope this will serve for all of the others, like the Germans and the Netherlands, or the Netherlands, French, European groups. I just chose one. The Celtic Druids venerated evergreen trees as manifestations of deity and as a symbol of the universe. I paused on purpose. Therefore, they represented the eternal aspect of the goddess. I paused on purpose. Who also never died. Wait a minute. Here's an issue already. Goddess who never dies. All right, let's continue. Their greenery was symbolic of the hope for the sun's return. Gradually sacred trees, imagery was absorbed by who? The Christian church, whereby we recognize when we plant a tree, we are encouraging the earth to breathe, encouraging the earth to breathe. And when we decorate our greenery or evergreen trees at Yule, I'm giving the original name or one of the original names of the different groups. This name belongs to this group as well as German, Netherlands, different groups, all right? And I'm just using one example. We are making a symbol of our dream world with the objects we hang upon it. Perhaps a gold chain or garland, reflecting the linking of all together on earth. Lights for the light of humanity or human consciousness. Animals, I need for you to hold that. Animal figures who serve as the totem, remember totem poles? Totems, fruit and color that nourishes and give beauty to our world, gold and silver for prosperity, treats and nuts that blend sweets and bitter, just as real life. Sounds really good. The trees we decorate now with symbols of our perfect world actually animates what we esteem and what we hope for in the coming year. As from this night, the light returns, reborn. Sounds like a New Year's resolution? Because that's what it is. Now, I'm sure you have by now labeled this in your mind as to what it truly is, as they recognize it today. But I want to give a special note as to where I got this from. It is the winter solstice, and I went to the witches' website. I took this from the witches or the witchery website. Now that don't tell you something. They said that the Christians finally embraced our idea of prosperity and a world waiting of good fortune. The Christians finally embraced it. There's a lot more information, and I wasn't able to get everything here, but I can tell you that they were very happy that the Christians have embraced their idea of how to celebrate the coming year with animal figures, nuts and treats, and this is all imagery for our perfect world to come. I have a little more that will come out on this. Let me go ahead while I'm here and just give you a date. After I look for the time that this goes back, it goes back more than 3,000 years. Which means Yeshua was here when this was celebrated. But we'll continue on. And by this time, I'm pretty sure that you have realized that that was a Christmas tree, as so named today. But they have the Yule log and the Yule tree, which is very symbolic and one of the holy times of witches. And so I think you can probably see that we are starting to pick up on some things already. But I'm going to continue on, and let's take a whole look now, or a better look. It's still not the whole chapter. Jeremiah chapter 16. Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 14 through 17. Therefore, see, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when it is no longer said, Yahweh lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of Mizraim, Egypt, but Yahweh lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands where he had driven them, for I shall bring them back into their land I gave to their who? Fathers. I need you to hold on to certain things because I'm going to pose some questions in a few minutes. See, I am sending for many fishermen, declares Yahweh, as Yahweh and declares Yahweh, and they shall fish them. And after that I shall send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and every hill, and out of the holes of the rocks. For mine eyes are on all their ways. They have not been hidden from my face, nor has their crookedness been hidden from my eyes. So let's note two things here. Well, a couple of things first. This is a prophecy that is not talking about coming out of Egypt. It is a prophecy speaking of coming out of the lands of the north and all the lands to where he said, I have driven them. And then he says, I will bring them back. Where? To his land. Let's continue. Verse 18 through 21. And first, here's the order. I shall repay double for their crookedness and their sin. When we wonder what is happening in our lives, it's because we're still paying a price that even our forefathers have done. And I'm going to expand on that a little bit more so that we can look at the previous generations. But like I said, I need you to keep hold of fathers. But we can't put all the blame on them. We have to also look at us today. Because they have defiled my, what? Land with the dead bodies of their disgusting matters, and have filled my inheritance with their abominations. O Yahweh, my strength and my stronghold and my refuge, in the day of distress, the Gentiles, here's a change, watch this, shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers, hold that, have inherited only falsehoods, futilities, and there is no value in them. Would a man make mighty ones for himself, which are not mighty ones? I think we already answered that question, but we'll continue. Therefore, see, I am causing them to know. That is strong right there. So what Yahweh did, the punishment is serving a purpose. What is the purpose? I am causing them to know, this time, he says it twice. I am causing him to know my what? Hand and my what? Might. And they shall know my name is Yahweh. So that means it's probably hidden until his hand is extended and his might comes again. Now we saw his hand before. With an outstretched arm, I brought them out of Mizraim. So for a second time, with an outstretched arm, he's talking about Yeshua right here. I shall cause them to know. How? With the hand. I shall cause them to know. How? By his might. 2 or 3 establishes what? Truth. And so this is what we're seeing. Yahweh is now getting ready to cause his people to come out of the land of the north and all of the places where he have driven them. And also here, when he speaks of the Gentiles in 1, 2, the second bullet, he says, O Yahweh, my strength and my stronghold and my refuge, in the day of distress. When will this take place? In the day of distress. The Gentiles shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers. That tell you right there. Our fathers go back to who? Israel. The fathers of Israel. So this is why I wanted to make sure that we note that this is a different set of Gentiles. They only believe that they're Gentiles. But once they come into Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10 and 11, you're no longer Gentiles. You only believe you are. For those who are listening. You're no longer Gentiles. Once you come into the belief of the one who died, rose, he hung, and he rose. You're no longer Gentiles. I need for you to know that. So let's begin our search here. Let's look for the land that was defiled with dead bodies and the abomination. Let's find out who the Gentiles have already began to separate them. Let's look at what Yahweh says is his inheritance. I like to define things. I like to know exactly what he's speaking of when he speaks. Let's look at the nature of our fathers that inherited lies, falsehoods. Here's a tip. Talmudim, let me hear it. Who always paid the highest price? The priest. The priest always pays the highest price. So right there you should know and understand that if these Gentiles have been scattered to the nations, and we know that Yahweh said Israel was scattered to the nations, And then next, he called them Gentiles who shall return to you. They must be Israel who lived their lives as Gentiles. Either they didn't know who they were, or didn't understand who they were, or were told that they were someone they were not. So now let's begin our search in looking at the diaspora, Babylon, 586 BC. We're going to begin with Ezekiel chapter 8. While there was so much in Ezekiel, the whole book of Ezekiel just really explains to Israel what happened. It gives us a lot of when it happened and to who it happened. So let's begin to look. Chapter 8, verses 1 and 2, then we'll drop down to the next bullet, 4 through 6. And it came to be in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my house with the elders of Judah, sitting before me, that the hand of the Master Yahweh fell upon me there. And I looked and saw a likeness like the appearance of fire from his waist and downward. The appearance was like fire. And from his waist and upward, the appearance of brightness like glowing metal. Notice again, we have a timeline here. In the 6th year, 6th month, 5th day. Yahweh is being very, very precise with us. The 6th year, they have already begun going into Babylon. And so, as Ezekiel was not among the first, he was tied up. As we look at chapter 3 and 4, we see where he was tied up, chapter 4, verse 4. You'll see exactly what I'm going to quote here. For 390 days on your left side, and then 40 days on your right side for Yehuda. Now, right away, when we look at that and I analyze this over and over, what I saw was they stayed in Babylon for 70 years when it says 40. Did Yahweh make a mistake? No. What he did was took 30 years from another time and applied it there. So that's the 40-year period. But then, for the northern kingdom, he also said 390 days. But he did not allow Ezekiel to speak for 7 days. So in my time of search, what I did was multiplied 7 times 390, because these 2 times were separate. But Ezekiel, he did the whole period of time concurrent. And if you add 390 plus 40, test, coming up, warning, test. 390 plus 40. Somebody go ahead and shout it out. 400, I heard it. 430 years. Excellent, good job. Put an A on your paper. 430 days Ezekiel spent laying on his side. Yahweh gave him a special diet. If you want to read about it, go to start in chapter 3, and you'll get there. By the time you get to chapter 4, you see how it concludes. But as the historian I am and history researcher as I am, I multiplied that 7 times 390. I'll just go ahead and give you the number because it is a big one. I have these in my head, which is 2,730, but someone can go ahead and verify that, make sure that I am correct. 7 times 390. I wanted to look at them separately to see what took place, what happened. And so when I took that and applied it to today's date, you can even go with 2017 if you want, because we're a few days outside of another year according to the Gregorian calendar, but I'll stay with 2016. And you take away 2016 away from 2,730. What you will find is 2,430, which is spoken of in the book of Daniel. The only thing is missing is that 430. Excuse me, let me correct myself. 2,300 years. 2,300 years, the only thing is missing is that 430 year period that is on there. And what I found when I lifted it up was, from this date now, that would take us back to the Babylonian period. And if you're doing the math, it would be 10 years into, if you're using 2016, it would be 10 years into captivity. And what we're reading now is about the 6th year, the 6th month, the 5th day. So Yahweh is very explicit with us. He's given us precision. He's given us precise numbers. You can't get that with traditional teaching, because first of all, you got to understand the holy days of which Yahweh has given us. So now I'm going to move on to verses, Ezekiel still chapter 8, verses 4 through 6. And see, the esteem of the Elohim of Israel was there, like a vision that I saw in plain. And he said to me, Son of man, please lift your eyes toward the north. And I lifted my eyes toward eyes northward, and north of the altar, the altar's gate, I saw the image of jealousy in the entrance. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The great abomination which the house of Israel are doing here, driving me away from my set-apart place, and you are to see still even greater abomination. So let's just kind of understand so far. I just want to mark where we are. Really, because I didn't total everything up and come back to it. I was really trying to rush and get it done and just, get here. So, keep a running tab, in other words. So here's some great abominations that Yahweh calls abomination. We see the image of jealousy. We see Yahweh says the abomination that happens by the house of who? Israel. See what they are doing. So he took him in a vision to the temple. But who did he have sitting around him but some of the elders? I want you to keep tabs on the elders. Let's call them fathers, okay? Because they are some of the early church, excuse me. Let me make note there. They do call certain group of ministers church fathers. And so this is one way that they have slipped in a bad inheritance of fathers to who believe they are church, okay? But differently, who are the real foundation is the 12 sons. Those are the fathers. I want to identify them. But they have extensions by their sons, the generations that followed them. And so these would also be called elders, who are the seniors and priests and prophets and kings. So they would fit into that category of fathers. So we're identifying as we go. The image of jealousy. Let's identify. We know that Yahweh says, I am what? I am a jealous El, right? So we can identify him as the image of jealousy. Or can we look at it as Yeshua, as the image? Because when he looked at him, he saw him from his waist down. The appearance of fire. Waist up, it was light. And let there be, come on with it.
Light.
Light. So we're identifying who we are looking at and who Ezekiel saw. He saw Yeshua as a man, but he also saw Yahweh as deity. Because it says the image of jealousy. And we know Yahweh is a jealous El. And so much so, it says, he was standing in the entrance. And where did he take him to? The door, right? And we know who is the door? Yeshua is the door, right? All right, so we can move on because I think you see now. All right. So let's begin to just label it as what it is. Idolatry. And let's find it. Let's look at it. Still Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 7 through 10. Then he brought me to the door of the court and looked and saw a hole in the what? Wall. And he said to me, Son of man, please dig into the what? Wall. And when I dug into the wall, I saw what? A door. So can we say this is probably maybe a hidden door? I don't know. Still analyzing that. And he said to me, go in and see the evil abominations which they are doing there. And I went in and looked. I saw all kinds of creeping creatures, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel, carved all around on the what? Walls. So these were images of animals, whether they sacrificed them and hung them up on their walls, because we still know some people who like to do that. Go out and shoot and make their trophies and brag about what they bagged. So these things were on the walls. And he took Ezekiel there. Remember, Ezekiel is bound by Yahweh. When you read Ezekiel chapter 4, you'll see that he did not move. Yahweh says, and I shall put bags on you that you do not move. Right? So I'm inclined to believe this brother wasn't able to move except for one time in 430 days. To go from one side, from the left side to the right. And so what we can see here is the house of Israel. And Yahweh is now showing Israel, us today, what happened in former generations, the adultery that the elders did. But we're not out of the woods yet. Let's continue. Notice there were creeping creatures and beasts. Notice what we learned about the Druids and the Yule tree. Let me go ahead and call it what it is today. The Christmas tree. Continuing to look at the idolatry. And the face of them stood, and facing them stood 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel, and in their midst stood Yaazaniah, son of Shaphoniah, each one had a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the dark, each one in his room of his idol, the room of his idol. For they say, Yahweh does not see us. Yahweh has forsaken the land. And he said to me, you are seeing still greater abominations, which they are doing. And he brought me to the door of the north gate of the house of Yahweh. And I saw women sitting there weeping for Tammuz. We have another god, another deity. So it wasn't just the men. But what is significant of this 70? Well, let's just kind of touch bases really quick. Let's go with the 70 years in Babylon. There's a lot more I can go with, but I need to keep moving. And the women. So let's go for even greater abomination. Verse 15 through 18. Then he said to me, have you seen this, O son of man? You are still to see greater abominations than these. And he brought me to the inner court of the house of Yahweh, and there at the door of the hell, or house, the temple of Yahweh, between the porch and the altar were about 25 men. Keep up with these 25 men as well. With their backs toward the hell, temple of Yahweh, and their faces toward the east. And they were bowing themselves eastward to the sun. And he said to me, have you seen, O son of man? Is it a small matter to the house of Yehuda? We're pointing out who he's talking about now. So this is the southern kingdom who goes into Babylonian captivity. To those to do the abominations which they have done here, for they have filled the land with violence. So we know that we're talking about the land of Israel. And turned back to provoke me. So not only did they defile it, but it's like thumbing their nose in Yahweh's face. And see, they are putting branches to my nose. Therefore, I shall indeed deal in wrath. My eye shall not harden, nor would I spare, and they shall cry in my ears with a loud voice, but I shall not hear them. Notice where they are. This greater abomination, now they're gone from the 70 men were spoken of in their secret rooms, who may have been on priestly duty or what have you. But this group of 25, they are in the court. And Yahweh says in the scripture, he says that if you would just turn toward my hekel, my house, in my direction to the furthest point, and pray and acknowledge and worship me. They're in the east, but they're outside the door, or they're looking outside their door that already faces the east, looking toward the sun, eastward. If they're looking eastward towards the sun, I think we see a problem here. What rises in the east? The sun. So what are they worshiping? The sun. So here's a greater abomination that is being done. We're going to continue and identify it. I know that you, as Talmudim, have already got the picture and the image in your mind. So, I want to kind of look at something a little bit further than chapter 8. We're going to go to chapter 11, verses 1 through 4. I think will bring out some of the same issue. But Yahweh is identifying his people here. And so let's look at it. And note that it is his Holy Spirit that is in attendance here. And notice what they speak concerning. And the Spirit lifted me up and brought me to the east gate of the house of Yahweh, which faces east. Simple right there. And see the door of the gate. Now we spoke about this in chapter 8. Now we're in chapter 11. And see the door of the gate were 25 men, among whom I saw Yaazaniah, son of Azur, and Pelet-Yahu, son of Benayahu, heads of the people. There's the fathers that Yahweh is speaking of in that generation. Now who they are, and I did look each of them up. The first one, Yaazaniah, he is an appointed prince by the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. He appointed him as king over the people, or governor. He is the son of Azur, who is also bloodline of another prince, but not who was in kingship at the time. Because you have the tribe of Judah, there's many of that same tribe. And then Pelet-Yahu, who he is of a priestly line. So you had your kings, your priests, your governors, all represented here, who were, let me just give you the word that I remember, in cahoots. Here's a conspiracy to gain wealth. They were backed by the powers that be of that time. I put you in, keep them in line, in other words. And he said to me, son of man, these are the men who plot wickedness, there it is, and give evil counsel in this city, who are saying, it is not near, let us build houses. This city is the cooking pot, and we are the meat. Therefore prophesy against them. Prophesy, O son of man. Yahweh's taken over once again. Let me explain what you're seeing here. Okay, we've resolved that these are the heads of the people at that time, whether they were placed by foreign authority, but they had what was called authority over those who were in or remained in Israel. Israel was picked from several times. I've seen at least 3 times that they went in, took some, went in, took some more, went in and took some more, till finally in 586, he really just kind of cleaned them out. And this was the southern tribe, Yehuda. And so with these figureheads now over them, they were on the side of the powers that be. Excuse me. And as they plotted against them, they did evil to the people of Yahweh. And what did the people do but follow their authority while these men themselves were praying to idols, creatures, creeping creatures, sun, moon. This is why he said, do not be dismayed by the heavens, for the Gentiles are dismayed by them. King James, little King James. odd. So they're picking Israel apart at this point and saying that Israel is a pot and we are the meat. We are prospering from their downfall. And so while I don't have it on here, I want to remind you of something that I talked of a few weeks back, where we're seeing the same thing in this country, where right now in this country, the price of melanin is well over the price of gold. Gold is not even in the picture. I'll give you the price. The price of gold per ounce. The numbers I'm sure have changed since I looked at my lab, because gold, it changes by the day or so. It was $53 per gram. Whereas melanin, what you see here on me, melanin was priced at $382.50 per gram. Let me give you per ounce. That's $6,120 per ounce. Now you figure out your own weight. All you need to do is convert ounces over to pounds. You know what? There's 16 ounces per pound. All right? So then you got it right there. That is the cost of melanin that is being sold in our universities, our research laboratories, so on. Maybe this is why we're seeing a lot of our young men and women killed and their organs taken. Or maybe we can talk about some of these plasma places that have been placed all around our communities.
Right.
They're popping up like
Everywhere.
everywhere, yes. And so these places are popping up. Why? Because, and I know I'm getting off a little bit here and I'm coming right back, but I'm just trying to show you the pot. I'm showing you the pot. They're willing to pay you $250 for an initial sign up to come and draw not just blood but plasma. And then I cannot remember the payment after the first initial. I know it's less than that, $100, $150, something like that. But you're getting paid $6,120 per ounce. And I'm sure you've taken much more than that. Who's getting ripped off? Who's the pot? Who's the meat? Somebody's getting wealthy from Israel again, plotting against us. I told y'all I was going to come back. I made it. But as you can see on the screen,
I was the chosen people. Bible in my hand, word inside my heart, and pain before my eyes.